Yeah, so let's kind of take a look at where we're at on this sort of experimental project, and where we're going. Um, this is a font currently called Animist. I don't know. I love that name and I intend to use it. I don't know if this is the specific font I intend to use it on. But here is the font so far. Let's just look at I think in the past I've had no. All right, let's set up not empty glyphs. Oh, nope. All right, let's see if I can remember how to do this. Oh no, get out of the way. This is a little keycaster thingy. So let's add a smart filter so we can look at drawn glyphs. And is there just an empty thing? No, so I guess I'll just do count of paths is greater than 0. That's gonna get us most of the way there. Cool. Yeah, so here's kind of the font so far. Yesterday I worked on numerals, and I guess okay, this is a let's add a one thing to this. Um, Glyph count of components is greater than 0. And then we'll have to click it again for a second. Any of the following are true. Cool. These filters in Glyphs over RoboFont are so useful, so I totally recommend using them when you have a question like, what are all the glyphs that are filled in this typeface so far? We can also maybe use Wordomat to display how things are looking. This just kind of picks up random words, and I guess it is showing us that some of our characters aren't filled out. So let's do it with selected glyphs so that we don't have so many gaps. Okay, let's try this again. Wordomat, please. What? Missed a button. Okay, that's looking kind of better. Yeah, so here is the font as of now. And my goal today, as you probably know if you've seen the thumbnail for this, is that I'm going to make a weight and width variable version of this. I also want to start by actually making an upright version of this. And I'm not going to take all the time to edit all of the letters to be upright because that will be a lot of editing and just time. And maybe I'll do that later in the stream, but I'm going to start with trying to do something a little more informative, maybe for people who may drop by my channel now or later wondering about variable font production. So, yeah, I'll basically start with a minimal character set. And by the way, just for setting some context, I normally would never start a font design in a forward slant or an italic. I kind of did it because that's just how I started drawing this font. I forget, it's an old post on my Instagram kind of, but I basically drew these 3 letters to start, and I really liked kind of this forking E crossbar and this weird A, and putting in some extra serifs kind of was the brief for this typeface. And then I wanted to expand that into more of a character set. So today, yeah, I'll start by basically making a new font almost. Not entirely. I'll copy it and but yeah, I'll be doing more of the sort of typical workflow of making a new font. So here's my glyphs window. I could just make a new like master in glyphs as a Roman or upright. Um, but I think I want to leave this one as kind of a version that I could return to later or whatever, because I'm going to be working kind of experimentally here. This is a glyphs repo, so I could like actually like make a branch and all of that. But a lot of the time, doing the stupid version way can actually be more useful. So we'll just kind of label it here with the date we're moving on from it, and yeah. Variable. Let's see. Naming, who knows what to do with it. All right, so let's close out of some tabs. And let's get back to our drawn glyphs. And this has a 14.04 degree slant, or italic angle. And that's kind of based on, I think, 4 units up and 1 unit over. I first heard of that idea in the IBM Plex typeface. It's kind of nice when you set your italic angle to be a specific number of units up and over, so that you can kind of always count as you're moving things around. It doesn't seem like it'd be useful, but it is. Okay, so we want to basically, I'm just going to slope everything back by 14.04 degrees. And I could get a little more clever than that, like using some rotation. Often if I'm starting, say, a italic, I would use some rotation and some sloping. But yeah, let's see what happens if I just do that. Okay, so that looks kind of cool on its own. Yeah, let's look at Wordamat again. Wordamat, please. I don't know what this will look like, but I'm suddenly really curious. Okay, capitalize, yeah, make words. Okay, actually kind of weird and cool in a really strange way. Yeah, I don't know. I might like I want to put a pin in this and come back to it, because that's just kind of a weird laid back sort of thing. Um, but yeah, you know what? I'm going to make another document just so I literally have this. A great thing about font files is that they're so small, so iterating like and just saving many documents or many glyphs is like nothing. Versus you wouldn't work this way if you were working on videos or something. Um, we'll call this unslanted. And let's duplicate it to make our variable basis. Okay. All right, let's try again. See if I get distracted again. Let's go. What happened to the 9? Yeah, okay, I see. Cool. Okay. I was just reading a chat message there, and we figured it out. It was that I hadn't... Oh, unless the what happened to the 9 was a question about this backsloping thing. And in that case, what happened to the 9 was it is a component of the 6. And so I think this might be happening with the O. Or I don't know. I guess for the O, it was basically circular already. And so, yeah, like it didn't have, like geometrically, it doesn't have as much of a slant as the H, even though it looks something close to right. So when you backslope that as hard as you're backsloping a rectangular character, it looks extra backsloped. In terms of the 9, it's like a component, and so kind of what happened here is that the 6 was sloping forward and the 9 was a component of it. And now, but it was rotate. I don't know. It's basically, yeah, it like double slopes it sometimes when you do something weird like that. This is actually so funny because like this, let's bring up our like metrics boxes here. All right, light, and we're gonna give it a 0 degree italic angle. Okay, so it is kind of wild that this right here is a vertical. It's like an optical illusion where it's almost vertical at least, but it definitely doesn't look like it. That's something cool, and I want to explore it more in the future. But anyway, for now, let's like correct these 4 glyphs, and then we will kind of do this variable thing, and then we can correct more glyphs. Let's see if I actually stick to that plan, but we'll try it for now. Interesting. I think that the italic like slope also kind of messed with things. I could write a script potentially. I'd have to like go look up maybe how to do that, but it could be useful. Or I could just, since I'm going to be messing with all of this anyway, I might just, let's see what happens. So that's 779. Oh, it definitely added, okay. Let's try this. Macro panel, please. I'm not like the most fluent with writing scripts and glyphs. I've spent more time in my life writing glyphs in RoboFont, and I find that API a little more intuitive, like how you reference things and move things around or whatever. But let's figure this out because it won't be that hard. So GlyphsApp API. Well, fingers crossed it won't be hard. Things can sometimes be hard when you don't expect them to be. So in this big document, I'm like looking for transform. Oh God. Right. This transformation thing is slightly confusing sometimes. I've used it before, but geez. All right, let's just go through and puzzle through it, and we'll get there. So and by the way, you don't have to like know how to do Python to do script or to do type design, but sometimes it can be helpful for things like this where we're trying to correct all of our glyphs, and I don't know that there's much of an easier way to do it. We could loop through all the glyphs and subtract a certain amount from the left side bearing and add a certain amount to the right side bearing, and that might be a pretty sensible way. Or yeah, actually a transform won't get us where we need to be. Well, because it literally changed the width of the glyph when we kind of unsloped this. All right, so I don't get caught up in the weeds here. I'm gonna not do this the like smart way. I'm just gonna go and see what I did in the previous thing, and we'll just keep rolling. This is an early typeface, so we're gonna need to respace it all anyway. Yeah, I think this sometimes doing things the not clever way is the way to go. So like That's interesting. These numbers seem wrong. Why? Because they were, I guess. Well, when you skew everything, you just kind of have to expect there to be weirdness. But okay. The other thing, let's see if this still works. Hey, it does. I have a script that kind of will just use the vertically aligned thing. Scale selected points to 0 width. And this is a script that uses some transformations. So I guess next time I need to transform things, I would actually probably go to my GitHub and pop this open and look at how I did it. But the useful thing to know is that if I hold all my mods and then tap the space bar, it kind of straightens things out. And that is going to be pretty useful because I want these to be vertical, not back slanted. I mean, there's probably something cool to them being back slanted too, but I think vertical wins in this case. I also have one that can help us fix these guys. Let's see, outlines, scale to 0 height. Oh, it's under the period. Okay, nice. I kind of put these together for working on name mono because I've got a lot of things in the italic that kind of are vertical lines, so it was useful. Okay, and yep, that does a little bit. Let's also kind of clean up our paths a little bit. Even though this looks kind of cool in its way, I don't know. It's not what I want at the moment. So hold shift option, we can put in our extrema points and then delete those guys. And then holding, what is this, control option, I can move these down and have these kind of other points, these off-curve points, flex with me a little bit. So that just makes things that much easier. Let's put this here. I'm not going to fix every letter in the alphabet here, but I do want to just have like an okay basis for the font, just to kind of, I don't know, have it look somewhat nice as we're working on our variable font here. Here's another point that should be a vertical extrema. And yeah, okay, so that's looking pretty okay, I would say. We'll want to correct it more later, no doubt, but it's kind of on the way to looking how I think I want it to. All right, the N honestly is fine. Let's maybe make the shoulder a little thicker, but yeah, cool. Then the D, we're gonna do a similar process to the A. I should probably have an O here as well. That's a pretty critical control character, so we're gonna add that to this list of stuff. Honed, is there? I don't know. I like little ink trappy bits, so let's add one. Yeah, a funny thing when we have these character references is that, I don't know, yeah, when you're going to a new typeface, maybe it can be a little bit distracting. Okay, so let me see what happens if I just slip this forward. Interesting. That's back to the italic. What if I do like 7.02? Ha, okay. That is funny. I don't remember if I started this O normally and then sloped it by half, but it kind of looks like it because it almost works exactly. Like it looks like a half decent Roman O with just that 7-degree tilt backwards. I do want it to be a little bit more symmetrical than this, so let's do something kind of fun here. I'm gonna select these, Option delete these. Oops, don't want that. Yeah. Okay, so my theory here, let's see if we can start with a symmetrical thing. And we'll probably have to resize it slightly, but that might get us pretty close. Oops. I hit Command-Shift-R to kind of redo the strokes there. This is looking... oh, good. Okay. I kind of want these to be just slightly more square, so I'm gonna... I think it's... okay, yeah, if I hold Control Option and select points, you can see that these are mirroring the movements, which is kind of cool. I've also been using this fit curve thing a little bit recently, a little bit more than in the past, and that's kind of a cool thing. Sometimes can be really handy. But yeah, I don't know. It's fine. It's decent. Okay. Yeah, I'm sure I'll want to clean these up further, but this is an okay Honda. Hope we don't get copyright claimed or something, but that's a nice word to work with. Okay, so let's go and set up another master. We'll call it bold. Or why don't we do black for fun? No, I'm gonna do extra bold, probably. I don't know. We'll see when we start drawing. We can change the name. Let's see if I can copy all these things. Sometimes you can. Okay, interesting. Sometimes Glyphs is super good about copying information, and sometimes it's a little bit not good. Ugh. Okay, we're just gonna have to do it then. Maybe I can I duplicate a master? That's probably faster. Yeah, okay, much better. Okay, we're gonna call this extra bold. And we'll probably want to raise the X height somewhat, but I don't know by what yet. So we'll wait for a second. Oh, let's also set these icons, which kind of is handy. And we'll set it to A, just so we have a nice visual reference. And we'll also start with redrawing this. And we can go between these with like command and then the numeral, I believe. So let's just kind of, I'm using a lot of that like scaling edit approach, which is very, very helpful here. Honestly, I didn't take even a moment to draw this out by hand, so probably a terrible idea. But we'll get there, hopefully, fingers crossed. I should be showing this in the background. Basically, I've found, just by observing others, honestly, and trying things, um, bold versions of typefaces tend to kind of add a little bit to the outsides and more to the middle. Um, and that kind of gets you approximately the results you maybe want. But I don't know for sure what I'm going to do for this top part yet. That's going to be an interesting sort of question, to be honest. And this kind of stroke is me trying to do something, I guess, trendy, but I'm unsure if I'll want it there. It's going to be a pain, seriously, to keep this curve working well in a variable font, which maybe is a fine thing to show. I don't know. I'll potentially back out of that decision just because it might be just so painful to try to keep up. But let's try to be kind of aggressive here with our weight and see how far we can push it. And I'm kind of, from memory, trying to make this a little bit like a fat face kind of thing, I guess, or like the style of like Didot kind of stuff. And we will see how that works out. Looks terrible so far. We're on a good path. Yeah, definitely looking more like a black weight than an extra bold. That's kind of my point, I guess. I am trying to see how far maybe I can push this until it breaks. And then I might, ultimately scale back a little bit once I have more information. The one useful thing to note is that I'm like not trying to add or delete points. I'm just trying to start with the points that were in the other weight here, and that allows me to create middle points, or middle instances in a variable axis. Darn it, I should have gotten the show variable font tool from Mark to Mark. Maybe I'll do that sometime in the middle here. Oh, we need to set up our values, of course. So let's make a weight axis. Okay, we're gonna start with the weight axis here, and that's looking good. And then we're gonna say this one is, you can either go by stem weights or kind of CSS weights. I guess we'll do stem weights, just because that makes it easy to consider things. So that's 71. Let's look at like the N, 68. Okay, we'll call it 68. And, to be honest, maybe I should start the heavy version with the N. It's probably going to be a more fruitful thing to explore. I'm just going to try to see what I can do if I just kind of reflect my movements. Okay, that's kind of something. Maybe we have to move this up too. I'm just kind of like hunting for, I guess, the appropriate thing. I guess this is a little fatter still, maybe. See if we can go one further. All right, yeah. I think that is kind of working. These are both 158, but interestingly, to me, the right stem looks just like a little thinner somehow. So maybe I'll cheat it out by a little bit. And let's kind of make those points a little smaller. Yeah, so I feel like all of the curves kind of have to be slightly more compact here. Okay, now that we've got that information, this is actually going to be somewhat easier, I think. I think this has to come up, basically, to reflect that n. Maybe we have to add a second point here. This will break the compatibility for... Okay, wait. Before I get into that, let me set up the instances. Okay, so... Shoot, what was this? And I'm holding all three mod keys. We'll call it 158. And sure, let's call it black. Okay, 158. And get back to font info. That's kind of cool. It shows what extrapolation to weight 0 would be. I'll talk about that more in a second. Let's add an instance for each master. 68, 158. If we do 68 plus 158 and then divide that by 2, we'll find the middle point, 113. I just kind of want to get a middle point. And maybe I'll call it medium. And then 113 plus 68, 90. Okay, we'll call, we'll add a 1 at 90, and we'll call that one regular. Can it be 0.5? Maybe. And then 113. This is raycast by the way. It's kind of nice. It's like Alfred, but the calculator's a little nicer. Wait, okay, 158. 135.5. All right, so we'll start with this set. That kind of will give us a nice bit of information about how things are interpolating. So you can see our n kind of going from our kind of initial light instance up to our new black instance. And this is telling me that the contrast has actually, I accidentally kind of made the connection a little thinner here in appearance than it was in the light. So I just kind of wanted to adjust that slightly. All right, our A is gonna look, how do people handle this bit of the A? It's actually a real mystery to me. Let's make a layer here. And let's try something like this. I don't know if I like this much. It's definitely like a new move that isn't happening in the regular, or the light rather. But we don't have like a ball terminal, so we can't just like increase the size of the ball terminal. This spiky thing does kind of put us into a bit of a corner. Which in that, I mean, that'll happen in the capital S as well, in the E. I don't know. I'll have to figure it out sooner or later. For now, maybe let's make it later. Yeah. So anyway, let's add a point here. And you can see that as soon as I add a point, the points are no longer compatible between these. I can do this better by view master compatibility. And it's basically, okay, if I delete this point, you can see that every one of these points relates to every one of those points in a pretty particular order because it came from it and I just moved them around. If I move the start point to a new spot, then this is going to be all crisscrossy and not work out. Usually you can make Glyphs autofix that if there's the same number of points with Command-Shift-R, but that totally didn't work. You have to do it often to both layers or sources or masters, and then it kind of applies the same heuristic, which is something like the bottommost point becomes the start point, and the outer points go counterclockwise. Okay, so getting back to what I was trying to do here, let's add a point here so that, let's make these both smooth, so that we can do something like this. And then this specific move probably won't work so well in an italic, just because these points will be really close together, but we might solve that at another point. I don't know. Okay. Let me read the comments. Hey, Faye, thanks for showing up. Hey, Lauren. Could I ask what CX means in the transformation section? I tried to see the guidebook, but still didn't understand. That's kind of probably a question from a few minutes ago. I don't know. It is kind of a slightly confusing thing. Last time I wanted to figure it out, I basically went through the forum a lot and found some partial answers and then kind of played around with it. I would guess that CX maybe means like contour X, potentially. Hard to say for sure. Could be component X, I don't know. Changing the N into a specific letter. Yeah. Could you lose the little dip on the top as it becomes a black weight? I'm not sure if I'm saying your name right, Selkie, but do you mean in the A or the N? Do you mean this little dip here? Because possibly, yeah, that could be one way. Yeah, that could be a thing. Let's give it a try. Or maybe we could make it smaller or something. This typeface is kind of all about these like added serifs, so I guess that's kind of the thing I want to keep in a way. But yeah, probably making it smaller is sensible, and certainly to make it lighter, that could increase. So I think that's a pretty good move, even if we keep it slightly subtle, potentially. We could also, let's make this like, I think we just kind of have to make this get more weight. Maybe it could be like, that's kind of interesting. Huh. I don't know, but that's kind of cool. That kind of starts to get us there, which is interesting. Well, I don't hate it. Let's work with it for now, and we might try other things later. All right. Yeah. Promise. promised like a variable fonts tutorial, and then I take an hour trying to change my A. Okay, this one should be faster. I'm just trying to go kind of fast. Yeah, it's about right, maybe. Well, if I compare it to the N, it needs maybe a little more. Yeah, N's and O's are sort of hard to really feel like confident about that weight relationship, but it's a start. Let's go to our letter D, and in the background I'm going to throw in the O. I don't know why my menu showed up way over on this screen, but we're adding a component. Let's go to the background and also add in an N and see where that gets us. It might work and it might not. Let me turn off a few layers. I don't want master compatibility. I don't even want metrics for a second. Let's delete this guy. Okay, so now I can more clearly see just my N and O. And that should maybe help us in... By the way, I'm not sure if this is the way to do it, but we'll find out. It at least gives us the same vertical thickness and the same horizontal approximate. One thing I'm noticing actually is that my counter space of my O is way bigger than my counter space of my N. Is that a problem? Because the two look maybe about yeah, the N does look a little more condensed just by a little bit. So why don't we that looks better to me. This is looking a little too square somehow. Okay. Still don't like the A, but why? Well, it's not as thick just yet by any means, so let's adjust that. Whoa. Did I make a new font accidentally? Yep. Okay, I feel like the N and A look to be about a similar kind of width. I don't know, I'm sure I'll want to revise that a little bit, but it's okay. I do think I need to take in the spacing a little bit so I can better match kind of the O. I don't know. we'll figure that out more in a second. Okay, but let's continue this D a little further. Kind of trying to make this D a blend of the O, N, and A. I don't know. I guess this typeface is somewhere between like a transitional, where there's like a calligraphic flat nib thing, and then a expansion sort of Dido style. Maybe I'm still figuring that out a bit. This is why maybe starting with the Roman is usually a practical approach. I would have maybe had a clearer answer on that if I started with the Roman rather than the italic. But I guess when I started this typeface, I was also trying to figure out how to get better at drawing italics. So in a way, it was an exercise in that, and I needed to figure it out more at that point than how to make a new style even. I don't know. Okay, this is kind of something. Let's make our capital N thicker, and then we will move on. I guess I could just make the one side thicker. It has to be kind of at least as thick as the lowercase n, but probably a little more, typically. Okay, we'll give it 20 units more and see how that feels. Okay. Rather than doing that, I'm going to just kind of flip this. Let's get our metrics back. Okay, I think it does, because I haven't expanded the width at all, it does look a little, maybe, yeah, I kind of want it to appear about the same overall rectangularishness as the light, and that means that the total width has to extend by just a little bit. All right, that feels fine. Okay, so let's get it back. Here we have our light and bold, and if we well, I guess we might as well try to export a variable font right now, just to see. Let me check how many incompatible glyphs I have. Oh, apparently, I see. I didn't yet get this one, so let me do that. Okay, now I think it should be compatible. And let me look at the chat for a second. The A, about 30 seconds behind. I think you're right. Really exaggerate between become. Yeah, that's true. It is hard to do your own thing at this stage and not look for answers elsewhere, for sure. And sometimes looking for answers elsewhere, I think, is fine. It depends, I guess. But yeah, I think references are pretty much fine. You don't want to copy anything, but sometimes people have solved a problem, and it's worth looking how other people have solved the problem. If you were working on a bridge, you wouldn't try to like reinvent every like way you weld or join metal or whatever. So I don't know. Or if you're working on a website, you'll look up ways to code certain things. So you don't always have to just like explore on your own, but also it can be pretty good to explore on your own and kind of see how things are, what you can come up with like out of experimentation there's a lot of use to that too. So it is a balance. I don't know. I think it's best to explore, to try to find something interesting on your own in something like the A, where you probably know how to make an okay A, and it's just a matter of like finding that solution. Whereas if you're trying to make like a yen symbol or some symbol that you're not as familiar with using, it's kind of just like a responsibility to go look up how other people deal with it, basically. Because you don't want to get too inventive on like things that you're not personally familiar with. I'm just kind of straightening out these stems because they bug me being not perfectly vertical. Okay. All right, so let's see. You can, there are lots of tools to build fonts. I tend to prefer, let's make a new export. I tend to prefer font make often, but let me see where I'm just going through my file system here. Okay. I like FontMake, but the Glyphs export can be really useful for just like design in progress stuff. There's recently a FontMake plugin for Glyphs, which I still haven't tested but really want to. Wow, it was fall of 22 when I was last working on this. Kind of seriously for that. Fontathon. Okay. Let's, oh no. What? Interesting. Too many inflections. Why is it complaining? Oh, come on, Glyphs, it's fine. That's an obnoxious complaint. I think that FontMake could actually build this. Let's look for, damn. All right, let me Google this. Font make plugin GlyphsApp. Maybe it's not like a really publicized thing just yet. I don't know. Okay, well, I don't want to fix this, but I guess I have to. I don't want to fix it because I feel like I shouldn't have to. These can interpolate, but apparently Glyphs doesn't feel like it. It'll probably complain about the F as well. So we'll add, wow, this F is looking pretty funky. It's cool in a way. Pretty funny. All right. Oh, and I'll probably have to copy these adjustments to the other source. so that it doesn't complain. All right, let's try it again. By the way, I didn't explain what an inflection point is. So let me explain that real quick. How many variations? Okay, we probably don't have too many to clean up, which is good. An inflection is where curves go in multiple directions rather than just one. So that is to say, let me draw this out. This is a basic cubic Bezier curve, and it curves in one direction. Like if you were in a car and making this turn, you would move the steering wheel and you'd go around the bend. An inflected curve is sort of like something that happens sometimes in the spine of the S, for instance, where it's curving in both directions. And because cubic Beziers have mathematical limitations, there's not as much control in the middle of that curve as if you had two segments to this path. And furthermore, if it's being converted to TTF curves, which are a slightly different type, they're quadratic curves rather than cubic curves, they have even more limitations than cubics. And I guess whatever way Glyphs is using, honestly, I'm just going to delete this glyph. Whatever way Glyphs is using to convert to TTF maybe isn't as accommodating as the library that FontMake uses to convert to TTF. So yeah, we'll see how many glyphs I have to correct, and if it's like too many more, I might, maybe it worked now. If it's too many more, I might figure out the FontMake thing, but it looks like it did. Cool. So I'm going to open it with Font Goggles. This is a nice app, and let's check out how we're doing. Fingers crossed. Moment of truth. Hell yeah. All right. We have our basic weight axis, and that's always an exciting moment. Like when I'm making fonts, one moment that's exciting to me is typing out something in the font, because that's the magic of fonts. But then honad sounds like a dirty word or something. I don't know. But yeah, the other point that's really exciting to me is making it variable. Okay. Now that we've got that, let's add in our width axis. So, hey, it only took me an hour to draw 5 letters. Isn't type design fun? Okay, so to add in a second axis, we basically need 2 more masters. And I was actually diagramming this out for somebody who asked me about this the other day. So let me kind of try to share that diagram real fast, and that will explain sort of where I'm going with this. Okay, so here I'm using myriad variable from Adobe. This is in Illustrator. Okay, it's having trouble sizing. So this is a basic width and weight variable font. I don't know. Basic in that it's not a humongous range in either direction, but it is a clear range. And I was just kind of explaining that a design space is all of the area that it is possible to interpolate within a font. So that's a really important concept in making fonts in general and variable fonts in particular. And when you're building a variable font, it doesn't allow you to do extrapolation, which is where basically if you have these 2 drawings, extrapolation is not scaling between them, but scaling beyond them. And it doesn't allow that because it's usually not very controlled. So basically, the minimum number of masters you need for weight and width axis is 4, where one axis is the weight axis like we've been exploring, and then the other axis is the width axis, like we're about to start exploring. Often you might have, say, a normal width that you start with, and there's the weight axis, and then you have an extended version, and a condensed version. So that would require basically 6 masters or sources. In variable fonts, and I won't really try to get into this too far, you can technically have 2 axes in an arrangement like this, or even actually, I think, in an arrangement with 3. Yeah, I didn't do this in the best possible way. You can sometimes do it like this, where let's go to you could have your default source and then a width axis, and your default source and a weight axis. And actually, the way variable fonts work is that you can scale to here and then add in the changes that scale to here, and you can basically get a sort of approximation. So it's almost like extrapolation, but it's really the adding up of the changes that take you to here and the changes that take you to here. So usually it looks like crap if you're trying to do something really precise, like let's make these low opacity. If you're trying to do something really precise, like a width and weight axis, this usually is not going to work for you. Wait, no, it would be even one more. Wait, what am I even thinking? Width extended. Yeah, weight diminished. But anyway, yeah, that's this technique is more useful if you want an axis that changes like crossbar height, or something that's really isolated and specific and would change exactly the same between different sources. So if your crossbar height is changing, maybe you're always moving every crossbar down by 20 units, something like that. And that can work, but a lot of things wouldn't. That's a long, well, actually that's kind of a brief explanation of why we're about to create 2 more masters to create a width axis. All right, so can I duplicate these both at the same time? Looks like it, cool. All right, so we're gonna call this condensed light and condensed black. And I'm gonna say these are the normal width, so I'm gonna give them a width number of 100, and I'm gonna say this should be based on like the same 100 as the normal width. It's kind of an approximate number. I'll call it 60. And this is a total guess, and that's fine for now. I just don't even know how condensed this design will go. And it will take some exploration for sure to get there. But for now, let's duplicate these. Ah, dang it, I can't duplicate them. That's pretty annoying. We'll add instance for each master. Okay, so now we've got condensed light. Okay, we can remove these because we already had them. Oh, and can I change this? Okay, that's pretty nice. I could change those all at once. Let's add like a middle as well. So add instance. So let's actually call these narrow, in fact. And then the condensed can be in the middle. We'll call this narrow. And what is our weight here? 113. And then this will be between 60 and 100, which would be 80. Cool. So now, let's start with our O. That's going to be kind of the easiest one. Show all instances. And let's get over to our narrow light. All right, that's pretty narrow. Let's go one more. Why not? I don't know how boxy this will have to be, but that looks kind of cool. So we'll roll with it for now. I'm going to set this to be equal because equal to the other side, basically. That's kind of handy. Let's also try to vary this one. Okay, this is where it's gonna start to get fun, I think, hopefully. Not that it hasn't been fun, but might get more fun now that we're drawing something a little more weird. Okay, and I'll probably have to reduce the spacing a good deal more, but let's reduce this for a second. Okay, so now this will be a little harder. And a really big, difficult question to answer in making like a narrow black is that if you don't reduce the weight, it suddenly becomes a lot more dense on the page and it looks bolder because there's not as much white space as the boldest thing that you're coming from. So basically, let's reduce the stem width by just a little bit. And we will have to experiment, I think, to figure out what's the right amount. But that's a start, I guess. All right, and then let's do that over here. And I'm holding down this like control option a lot in this process because it saves me a lot of work. Because it kind of automatically gets things closer to what I want. It scales the curves. Okay. Kind of make that a smooth point. And I'm taking in the other side bearing by a little bit. Okay, so I want the end to have less side bearing because I want the kind of inner spacing to be about equivalent to the counter spacing. So that's kind of the rough goal of basic spacing. So here, I kind of see this as a display font because it gets quite contrasty. And to me, this at a large size feels approximately equal in presence to the counter space. And likewise for here, this is equal to this-ish. I often go back and forth a lot on like what feels right in a font, but that's kind of the general goal. This has to come in by a lot. Okay. And this is feeling that feels better. This was just feeling a lot thicker than, let's do it here. I'm just gonna try to match the counter space, and then I'll figure out how this gets in the middle. Let's add a guide to those two, and then we can see how it lines up in the middle, which is kind of cool. And in fact, we could do that here too. Cool, so these are all centered, which makes sense because we came from a transformed reflected thingy. Okay, so then let's get this counter to match as well. That was too much. Well, something like that. Okay. Nice. Looking at the comments again. Is there anything you would suggest not to put into a variable axis? I'm working towards a variable weight and x height, and I'm not sure if it's a great idea. The variable x height could be a cool idea. When I'm thinking about what to make into a variable axis or what not to, I guess it becomes a bit of like a product design or UX design question. Like, what's the point of putting in an x height? Some fonts, I could imagine there being a really important use case. So like one challenge of a width axis is that actually once you start to, so let's, basically the x height looks weird in width axes because a really tall x height in a wide font will look kind of normal in a narrow font, or a normal x height in a condensed font will look I don't know, it like plays tricks on your mind. Let me just demonstrate it rather than trying to talk through it all, and that will be easier. But that is all to say, in a width font, I could imagine an x height change being pretty useful because maybe a graphic designer would want to play with that. And it's easy to have an opinion on whether an x height looks right across a width axis, and there's kind of the two separate ideas where you could keep it consistent or you could keep it optically consistent against the capitals. If it's just a weight axis font, I can't think of a specific case where an x height would be really useful. I mean, you would tend to change x height for like a smaller optical size, but there's other changes you would add there, like extra letter spacing, and maybe changing descender and ascender heights. So I'm a fan of like the optical size axis. An x height axis is maybe a little too in the weeds, and maybe the best case to do that is actually, as a design stage, figuring out the ideal proportions for the typeface or for potentially a logo or word mark or something. But I don't think very many users actually want necessarily to dial in the x height of a font. Then again, maybe dialing in the x height would make it easier to pair with other fonts. So maybe you match the cap height with your font size, and then you could really specifically control the x height. And so that is a thing you could market it as, like better pairing with any font. But in that case, I would still think like that you would want to maybe ship other parametric axes. Like that's the name David Berlow has kind of coined, I think, for axes that are very specific, like x height or things like contrast, or like changing just these strokes or just these strokes, vertical versus horizontal. Yeah, I don't know. So I hope that answers the question there. But yeah, I basically think like what axis will sell the font is the basic way I think about it, I guess. Or, you know, and selling the font, maybe it's an open source project, like you're still basically trying to make things what what axis is worth the time, I guess, is another way to put it. Like, what will people say and think, I want to use that font because it has this axis. So that's the way I would maybe think about it. All right, so and I'm just kind of counting to myself as I make some of these changes. I think we can go even more condensed than that. And then Control Command M will update the side bearings. That looks about right to me, maybe. Something like that. Oh geez, that O looks so much more narrow. Why? Maybe it needs to be just a little wider. And probably a little more rectangular could help it kind of have a bit of presence. I don't know. That becomes a tension because I want to have the O sort of optically look about the same width as the end, but also sort of optically match the counter space. I don't know. When you go to extremes like weight or width extremes, or both weight and width extremes, like the rules of the universe that you would typically be able to follow kind of go weird. And I'm like semi-quoting something DJR said once. But yeah, it's definitely a little hard. And I'll probably end up having to mess with it a lot more to get something that feels right. Okay, but let's manipulate this one. Let's go narrower. And probably instead of showing all instances, I should just be showing what's here. And I could even do this spacing thing where it's like something like that. It's like that. There we go. The N has too much space on the, should have a little less space on its right side. So actually, let's do this. All right, so we want to match the inner proportion of this and that. And then secondarily, we want the N to look like it's basically in the middle of that. So we're honestly a little closer. One thing I like to do is if you hold Control and Command, then you can space it within its boundaries and kind of find the offset that feels appropriate. So here it looks like maybe 9 on the left side and 3 on the right side is about right. O should basically be matching on left and right sides if it's a symmetrical O, which is mostly usually the case, but maybe not always. All right, so that feels about right. Maybe this doesn't need such wide serifs. And maybe it can come in just like a little more. Cool. I don't know. All right, so Yeah, I mean, I guess we don't have many letters yet, but we could see how this relates variably, or we could make more letters. Let's do the A at least. So let's just go for it. Basically going to be scooching it in and trying to match the approximate counter space. God, this becomes such a huge problem, kind of. Maybe. Yeah, something you don't think about is that fat faces very frequently have ball terminals that fill in this space really nicely. I don't know. Let's fix this first, and then we can do the other part. So this is an interesting case where if we just set it to be as it is, it might have a kink that happens, especially on this guy. I'm not explaining this well. I'll just edit it approximately how I want it to be, and then if it causes a kink, I'll look at that and try to explain what happened and how we can fix it. Wait, sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. Or rather, it often works, but it's not always exactly as I expect it to be. Okay. All right. Somebody else asked a question, by the way, that I didn't answer. Hey, how unselected handles move at the same time that selected handles? For example, when you modified the O. Oh, yeah, thanks for asking again. That is one of the most important parts of working on in Glyphs or RoboFont. This is the case in either time, but scaling edits are a really useful tool. There's other terms for them. FontLab calls it the power nudge, and it's actually even more like one level more complex, or maybe better. I haven't got a lot of experience with it, but basically, all right, if we're trying to make this an extended O, if I just hold shift and then nudge it with an arrow key, the curve here gets totally messed up. Just because these are staying the same, the actual curve we want is something more like this, where it kind of keeps a certain relationship. So let's try that again. And we'll use Control Option when we're moving this. And you can see that it's scaling this, so it keeps kind of a sort of relationship that's sort of a lot closer to what we had designed originally. And it makes this kind of manipulation so much faster, and it's not exactly what I would want for the an extended version of this, but it's way closer than I could get if I didn't do that. So again, like let's do this thing without without any scaling edits and see where it gets us. Oops. So we'll move that all the way out here, and this all the way out here. Something like that. So let me add a guide just so I know that I'm actually in the middle here. And I'll do that here too. But you can really see the difference, right? Like, yeah, basically, this one is entirely too pointy at the top and bottom, and this one is looking closer to what I would want. You know, I would still go in here and do the second trick, again, actually holding the same control option. And I want to reflect this change across the other side of the smooth curve. So if I hold control and option, as I change that, it changes this other side as well in kind of a mirrored change. So that as well helps me get a lot closer to the change I want, and then I don't have to like do a ton of like measuring and fiddling or like copying of curves around. So yeah, that's a great question, and that's something I'm doing a lot as I'm working on all of this. Okay, hopefully that answered the question. If it didn't, let me know. Hey Sandro, thanks for popping by. Really good to see you. How did you make the red line for alignments? I see. Let me get that back again. So in Glyphs, if you select any 2 points and right click and add guide, it adds a guide. And the guide has a little dot, excuse me, that is centered right in the middle. And so I can kind of use that for alignments where if I want to make sure these are aligned in the middle of these, I can right click and add a guide. And then when you've selected any 2 points, it'll create like a bounding box that you can use to control the segment you've got or whatever you've selected. So you can use that bounding box that is currently stretched across here and use those two concepts together where that allows me to see if it's aligned or not. So I think that's what you were asking, and let me know if it wasn't. Smart show plumb lines, so you don't have to do it with guidelines. Oh, that sounds cool. I should give that a shot sometime. Why not now? Let's, if it's in the plugin manager, I'll try it. Yeah, there's like a ton of really handy plugins. Plumb line. Okay. Oh, mark to mark. Nice. All right. He is a very cool guy. Oh god, I have to restart Glyphs. Cancel. Let me save this. And now I'll try to do it. It's opening up again. And open recent, spiky serifs. Which one was I in? Okay. Cool, we're back. So let me see how the smart plumb lines work. It's probably under review. Show smart plumb lines. Oh, does it just know? Well, that's tight. Okay. Great suggestion. I will leave this on for a bit and see how I like it. Okay, it's just mash the mods and press P to see it or not. Very cool. Okay, thanks for the tip. That's really nice. Oh, these red lines? Aha. Yeah, those are just global guidelines. So you can click any guideline. Let's get rid of these plumb lines. And maybe if I right click it, it will be. How do I make it global? Honestly, it's been a bit since I've. That's so funny. I might have added it in the. If somebody knows, just say it in the comments. But I'd have to search it. I might have added it in like. Oh, okay. You right click and say make global guide, and then that guide will appear in every other letter until you delete it. And so yeah, I was doing it for kind of aligning my serifs. Yeah, in the last round of work, and that was kind of a handy thing. Thanks for asking. Okay, so let's see. Oh yeah, here's a spot where I'm using an inflected curve because it's kind of the simplest way to get this curve in a way that will interpolate easily. I don't know. I'm still unsure about this specific thing. We'll roll with it. Let's do our last letter, and then we'll export to a variable font and see it in action. Okay, so now we've got our guys in the background. Let's try to meet them. Oh god. Clearly hadn't grabbed a couple. Kind of funny. Sometimes this doesn't work exactly as I expect it to. Oh well, we'll just fix it. And we'll match the end for now. Turn off the metrics for a second. It's a little easier to see. Okay. We're approximately there. And let's just kind of, I don't want to like set the right side of the D to exactly match the end because it doesn't come in right here at the X height, so it would look a little bit wrong. For now, I'll match it to the left side of the O though, and then I'll probably adjust it by a little bit. Oh, I hadn't changed this A yet, so let's also do that. Okay. there. I think maybe. Wow, really hope my video doesn't get banned for using a trademark name as a test word. We'll see. I don't think it would, but I don't know how YouTube works. Okay. All right, it's approximately fine there and approximately fine there. Okay. And let's check if everything's compatible, incompatible. Oh, I guess the A is. So we'll do this, let's show master compatibility. I'll just kind of go through my layers and hit that Command-Shift-R thing in each of them, and now it looks like it's probably compatible. Just kind of taking a sec to make hopefully decent spacing. All right, let's, I often try to give it a sort of very basic time-stamped name adjustment in case I'm going over to Illustrator and like trying the thing. But we'll just test it in Font Goggles again real quickly. Okay, and then let's see, here we are. And so we've got our weight and we've got our width, and there's some issues for sure. The D looks not fixed yet. But yeah, pretty fun. And in fact, let's install it and try it in Illustrator real fast just to have a little more fun with it. I swear there's some way to test install it. I always forget how Glyphs does that specifically. I'll just drag it into my fonts, and that's the way I test install a lot of things. So here I've put my fonts in the sidebar. And now let's update our diagram here and see, hopefully we might be able to make it work. Unanimous. It doesn't allow us to, that's an annoying thing to me, where it doesn't allow you to like update a font and sort of keep to its general, oh well. All right, so width, and let's make these heavy. Kaboom. And yeah, yeah, it is interesting. I feel like you can kind of see here that indeed as you go narrower, it kind of looks like a bit of a thicker weight, just because there's more black figure space in the area. So like, let's try just like a better comparison here. So like, I wonder, we could probably get better words. Let's draw on glyphs. Let's go here, it'll be more obvious. Maybe Wordomat will give us more words. Oh, There's not very many words, but there's a few. Okay. I hope none of these words are questionable. I don't know, but Wordomat just picks from the entire dictionary, so sometimes you can get words that you wouldn't necessarily say in polite company. But yeah, basically this is interesting that this one looks like, I would say, a regular weight, and this one maybe looks like a lightweight. And if we change this to the boulder style, let's go like part way up. I should really map this weight axis to something more practical, but for now we'll just do it. Yeah, this really reveals it, where this really looks like a black weight or an ultra weight, and this just kind of looks like a very bold weight. So since I'm really early in the family, I would probably just increase the weight of this guy, because I do want it to be somewhat extreme. And then I would probably decrease the weight of this. And yeah, that would probably be the way I would go. Potentially, I would try to decrease the weight of both of these things. This line is really showing me that my curves still have too much side bearings, I feel like. Probably. Or maybe the D is just really off-centered. Yeah, that's definitely part of it. We'll try that. Yeah, basically it has way too much space. What if I see. So this is an issue where I don't actually want it to be referencing that. Yeah, that's somewhat better. One thing I kind of like to do is I've got a script where I just have, let's see, make tab with spacing string for selected glyphs. This really shows me that I should also work on the control character for O. So that I can actually do some basic spacing here. Wonder what would happen. Okay, I've got just over an hour left. I'll probably take a pause really soon. Let me do this O, and then I'll take a pause. Let's copy that to a layer. And I just want to see how well this works. I don't actually know how well it will work, but sometimes this sort of thing is pretty good and sometimes it's not. All right, so we'll scale this up from the lowercase to the uppercase. Match its bounds. Okay. That's pretty much matching, and obviously it's way too heavy right now, but then we can just do it again for the interior. And it's about right. So that's kind of fun. Let's show those plumb lines again. Well, wait. So this shows the plumb lines, but does it really show me if these are centered? I guess maybe I could do this, and then it would. Okay, that's pretty good. So it, I guess, I don't know. I'm suddenly confused if that is a useful thing or not. I'm sure there's a useful thing, otherwise it might not exist anyway, but all right. Let me turn off master compatibility. that's somewhere in the ballpark. All right, let's copy this again and make our light. I see. Oh, okay. I've just realized the usefulness of the plumb line. The plumb line is showing us, yeah, the exact middle point. So that's what we make meet up. That's cool. Okay. I get it. That's a nice feature. We have to, I think, make it a little more rectangular. And it needs to be slightly narrower. Okay, so now, wait, no, wait. We still have this guy. All right. Still, I can't decide if that looks about right. I don't know. Hard to say for sure. But yeah, so now we've got, I think all 4 of our master layers have roughly the correct O. And that makes it somewhat easier to do all these spacing strings. So we've got like the basic spacing string for the letter H, and the A, and the D. And sometimes you're gonna need kerning. So like I think this combination would pretty much need kerning. Okay. Yeah. Well, then. Okay. Do we get any more word mat words if we do these? A few more. That's cool. Okay. Well, I need a bathroom break, and then I'll come back and figure out, I guess, what to do from here. If you have ideas of what you might think would be cool to see from here, I am interested. So let me know what you think. I guess I could just keep jamming on the character set would be the obvious thing. Anyway, BRB. Wait, no. These look hilariously bad. That's kind of perfect for Fontathon, I would say. How long will the break be? Good question. I don't know. 5 minutes to 10 minutes. Depends if I find a good YouTube video. 5 minutes, and I'll be back. Thanks. Uh, 12. Looks hilarious. Which is the... Alright, well that one doesn't look hilariously bad at least. I'm gonna give myself 1 extra minute. And we are back. Okay. Let me read the comments again, just so I can get back into the flow of it. Okay, good question about merged shapes, bowls and such. It depends. Oh yeah, that's a good question about the Slack Discord community. There's like a RoboFont Discord that's pretty good. There's a Future Fonts Discord for people who are on Future Fonts, which I've enjoyed. I don't know if there are others. There might be, but I don't really know of them. Yeah. I see you're working with merged shapes, bowls, and such. Yeah. Do you find it easier for drawing purposes, or is it for the variable export? A little bit of both. Like it really depends. I don't always draw with merged shapes. So let me answer that in a better way. Roman. Okay, so here's my family Lang Roman, and like let's see how many merged shapes I'm using. I've left this as like an overlap to make it easy to move up and down, and to make it really easy to like keep these together on this side. It's a good question whether I should do that in the A in this spiky serif font. I haven't done it here because this is smooth, and when I have a smooth connection, I don't want there to be some sort of a clever bit here. So like, let's see, we, just to explain what we could do, we could say reconnect nodes, and then here we have a thing we could move kind of independently, right? And it's still pretty much smooth, but even though that works pretty well in like a static font where overlaps get removed on export, this overlap will remain here in a variable font. And I found that in certain cases, when a font is rendered and there's anti-aliasing going on, so like pixels are partially lit up or whatever to better represent that curve, there can be some sort of like doubling or sort of visible little kind of blip here where it's sort of doubled up gray values. And I really don't like seeing that. So that's why I avoid exterior overlap points, even if I'm doing a lot of interior overlap. So another place I might do interior overlap, maybe I have it in like a W or something. Not here. Yeah, to be honest, I do often avoid overlap because it's, I don't know, I'll use overlap early on a lot to, as I'm like figuring out the relative weights of everything. But then if I'm doing especially ink traps, I like to remove overlap kind of where sensible, I guess. It depends. I don't know. I try not to use too much overlap. Like I feel like some people, and early on in glyphs, I tried to get really clever using like components for every serif and like for every corner, and there are things like that that can be useful, but I've learned that a lot of the best type designers just draw the thing they want, rather than trying to get super clever about making it really adaptable. Because the more you use corner components and things, the more chances there are to like have glitches where your curves don't quite meet up, or yeah, where things just like have a little imperfection that can pop up in the build or something. And if you can avoid that by just drawing the thing, a lot of the times it's better to do that. Also, with just drawing the thing, it gives you more of a chance to sort of optically match things like stroke weights, and even if that includes a little bit of imperfection, sometimes that's not a terrible thing. Kind of depends, but yeah, some people like deliberately don't even try to make their serifs the same length exactly. Like they'll try to introduce slight variation or just allow there to be slight variation to keep things looking more lively. Yeah, it depends. I don't know. I think there's some room for keeping things really consistent as well. I think that's like a cool thing that digital tools allow. Um, and certainly, if you were making a huge character set, like a Chinese font, you would definitely be doing all sorts of things with components and smart components, and you'd have to make the system more efficient. But in a Latin font, you're only drawing relatively few glyphs, like 50 or 60 per master, and it's a lot of work, obviously, but like it's not that much work. It's where it's super essential to have corner components. I don't know. Potentially early on in the design, you could be clever with corner components, and obviously, I'm not the be all end all of the answer to that question. I bet if you're watching and you're really familiar with a lot of cool things Glyphs does, I appreciate hearing that in the comments actually, because I learn things that are useful a lot of the time. Like that plumb lines tip is great. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Sometimes just doing things the manual way is the right and most efficient in the long run. It depends. Especially when you're more comfortable with moving and manipulating vector curves, as happens once you draw with them enough. It's pretty fast to like edit a lowercase or whatever. So it depends. All right, it's 03, not 04. Good point. I did start 1 minute early. Any tips to get onto future fonts as a seasoned veteran? Asks Brian Fusion. Are you saying I'm a seasoned veteran or for a seasoned veteran? The answer is it kind of depends. Like many services, early on, they were trying to onboard as many people as possible. And then once they had a sufficient base, they've kind of gotten more slow and selective about who they onboard. Basically, they want to find designs that are original, and in particular original within their library, and also they try to go for like diverse contributors. So they want to encourage people from places other than say New York City to submit fonts and stuff, and especially with scripts other than Latin. But yeah, so I guess if you really wanted to get on variable future fonts, like come up with a weird, cool design and make it really good, and yeah, and then just like reach out to their email. I don't know what it is at the moment, but I know they have a page about submitting for the first time. You can also reach out to me and show me the design, and if I love it, I would maybe advocate for it. But depends, I guess. Like I could also just give you feedback, which depending on the font or on your expertise and experience level, sometimes you just need like reps to get better at the thing, and it depends. Another question: I stopped using corner components since I would have to decompose and manually adjust every character when finalized. Yeah, right. Yeah. So sometimes if you're being clever about something, in the end you have to fix it all anyway. So sometimes it's useful to just do things the hard way at first, and you can save time. But it depends. I don't know. Yeah, basically, if you know what you want to do, you can be really fast at drawing in vectors. And that's kind of in multiple levels. Like if you have a vision for what you want the outlines to be, like if you've drawn them by pencil and hand a lot, you can get there kind of quickly in vectors. And pretty quickly improve on what you had drawn. Or it's also at the very small level where if you know what you want a curve to look like, it's pretty fast to get there with a vector. But it takes practice to sort of visualize that and then get there. So if you've ever done a sport, like basketball, say, it's pretty clear, like the objective is to get the ball into the hoop. But then you kind of need some muscle memory and technique to like know how to do that from different points on the court or moving or whatever else. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not much of a basketball player, but I was trying not to make a skateboarding analogy, so there it is. Let's straighten these things out. Okay. I guess I'm currently here, so I don't need to say I'll be back, but you get it. I don't know. Will this be right? Let's see. Let's show these plumb lines. Might be helpful in this case. Okay, I should probably fix the C and E. If you have a thought about what you'd like me to work on at this moment, pop it in the comments and I will consider it. Because I've kind of done the demo that I came here wanting to do, which is this kind of demonstration about how to get there. Okay, actually, I do have one more thing I wanted to include in that before I start fiddling with this much more. The last thing you really want to make sure that you've got going in a weight and width variable font is, and this is true for any registered variable axis, which is to say, let me find this, Microsoft open type variable axes. There's 5 kind of original variable font axes, and they have a valid numeric range that you should align to, and the like scale interpretation. And this is sort of, if you don't align to this, then it's still useful in Illustrator, but like it wouldn't be very useful on the web and CSS, where people expect that 400 is a regular, 700 is a bold, etc. So let's plug these in to our. I wish there were a faster way to do this. I really like the glyphs approach in some sense, but in another sense, I'm not the biggest fan of it. But let's see. Okay. Because I wish it were easier to like copy in the values. I do really enjoy this visualization. It's super sick. But I forget everything. Okay, so anyway, let me go back and look at what I've got going. So 68 is 300. We'll start with that. 68 is 300. I think this is just like an input output sort of thing. And 158 is we'll set it as the black weight, 900. And that might be about enough. We don't need to change our width because we started with the kind of valid scale for that people would expect to see in CSS. I should actually do, you know what, I'm going to call this extra bold and set it at 800 because I don't think it's quite actually black yet. I don't know. Maybe I should be making it a black rather than... whatever. For I don't know. For now, I'll just set it to extra bold. Or the other thing is we could set it to black, and then I could add another extra bold in there. Maybe I'll do that, because that is what I would probably intend to do in the future if when I keep pushing this font to release. So let's add an extra bold. Wait, shoot, let's, oh, dang it. But then I'd have to, I have to think about what the stem width is that I want, which is, oh man, I'm sure there's a good way to do this. I've written Python scripts in the past and I don't know where I would find that at the moment. Basically, you need to divide up, the range, and then you can figure out how to do that. I don't want to go through the mental thinking at the moment because few things make me feel as stupid as coding live sometimes if I'm like unable to get what I want right away, which is, you know, often code does take a bit of bumbling around to figure out the thing again. But anyway, we'll just go between these two. We'll start with that. So 135.5 plus 158 divided by 2 is 146.75. All right, we'll see if this works reasonably well. Okay, so let's get back to our, at least we should put regular and bold in there. So 90.5 and 135.5. Is it this? Why are these out of order? Oh, that's so annoying. Okay, whatever. Should be 700. Okay, well, we'll start with that. Was it 90.5 or did I literally forget in the space of 2 seconds? Okay, I was right. All right, so let's export this again just to show how that looks. Okay, here we have it. Let's put that up top. And fonts. And then let's go back to Illustrator. And let's update these. Well, I don't want to update those. Let's go here. Here. Okay, so now oh, wait, did that not work? Why? That's funny. Axis mappings, I would imagine they should work. External coordinates. Am I doing this wrong? I don't think so. Well, yeah, I mean, I would normally... I don't know. This is the kind of thing that I'll have to go on in the forum and figure out. That's so strange. I mean, I am making some assumptions about how it should work, so I've probably just missed some incredibly obvious, simple step. But Yeah, this should be, in my head at least, the intent is that this would be marking it as weight 400. Possibly it's because I didn't set a map for every one of the points along the axis. So it's, let me try that. I wish there was like a text-based way to, okay. I love graphic interfaces, but sometimes you just want a text-based UI as well. All right, I'll set these things to. Oh yeah. By the way, if you're wondering what the valid value is, it's right in here with the weight class. Okay. Although the variable weight axis can go from 1 to 1000, not just 100 to 900, as this kind of indicates. So let's do the others. So we had that 113. We'll go to 500. And 135. Maybe I did this in a silly way too. That'll be fun to find out. 146.75. We'll go to 800. Yeah, for some reason and I can't even drag it, but it is useful to see. I definitely wouldn't want this to be. I mean, here they are spaced out pretty much regularly. I guess I just don't have a medium in there. Maybe I accidentally called this 600 when it should be 500. And then I don't yet have a demi-bold or semi-bold in there, which would be at 600. So, okay, this is looking more as I would expect it to. I would still probably want to mess with these values somewhat more. But, okay, now that I've got 300 through... I wish I could change these. It just... It doesn't probably actually matter, but it's still annoying that I can't. Okay, oh well. Let's see if we now export these. Wait, let's. Maybe it'll work this time. Okay. Fingers crossed. Nope, didn't work. Oh well. I could go look at the GlyphsApp tutorial and read about it. I'll just find that tutorial. Variable fonts tutorial mapping. I think it's in here. It's Command F to find axis mapping and locations. Well, it doesn't. Oh, you can add a value by clicking a plus. That's cool. Okay, so it looks like I was pretty much doing it right. But yeah, I don't know. If you know what I'm missing, put it in the comments. But it's probably just that I have to sit here and read about it or look on the forum or something like that. But that's not very fun in a live stream. So let's just keep editing glyphs, I think. Let me check on the comments one more time. When I was 100% expecting a skate analogy. Yeah. Vector curves are hard to get what you want, but eventually you learn to visualize the thing and then perform the maneuver. And eventually it becomes second nature. So for me, I can pretty much ollie decently okay up a curb every time I try, almost. And that's takes a long time to get that like precise feeling of like what movements you have to do to manipulate a board, or in this case a vector curve. Yeah, someday please, Lord, I hope to have comfort with kickflips like that. But we will find out if I can ever get there. So that's the analogy that I actually think of too often in terms of type design. Okay. The background E is not helping us at this moment. Oh, I think I missed it, but if you're still there, Lions Type, thanks for stopping by. Appreciate you on the stream. How do you set up your Roman and italic project that has two different files? I'm making one right now, and it's kind of hard to draw when I have to switch between two files to see if it's consistent or not. I agree that's an annoying thing. Sometimes I have started by doing them in the same glyphs file, and that can help with that, like switching across, but it also just causes issues too. I think in particular when I can't remember. I was going in the same font for a while on maybe name mono in the same glyphs project because of monospace, like the spacing should all be the same. And I especially dislike having to set the font data like the same but separately multiple times. But there's just certain things that you run into where you just realize like, oh, glyphs isn't quite meant to do that. And I can't remember at the moment what it is. But there's some sort of stumbling block. And on the forum, I think they literally say it's not really meant to have Roman and italic styles in the same font. And I just don't remember what specific problem it was. But then how do I set it up? I don't know. I keep them next to one another. I try to work on them kind of mostly at the same time. It's kind of like working across different master layers a little bit. You just go back and forth and try to keep them. Well, there's kind of the two different approaches. One approach is you make all the Romans first, and that's pretty valid, and then it's really useful for figuring out what the design is. And if the italics are very similar but just sloped and maybe slightly tweaked, then you can do italics in a second batch. Or you can kind of keep them pretty much in the same pace. I think that makes a lot more sense for like a serif family or something where the italic is a really specific design. I don't know. I think there's arguments for both. And yeah. Finally caught a live stream. Thanks for dropping by, Luke. Really happy to be able to make videos that people find useful sometimes. So yeah. Glad I can do a little bit of that. Mecha Blue's scripts should help solve your problems. That's true. Mecha Blue has a ton of amazing scripts. Sandro, thank you for stopping by. Enjoy your aperitivo. Yeah. We have only about 30 minutes left. So, yeah, to be honest, it's sort of hard for me to talk for like this long. It's a little hard to know where this should go in relation to the baseline. I often have that question, and I don't know that I have the perfect answer. That would be a good thing to maybe ask on type drawers or something. We can start the E with this C, I'd say. maybe. Yeah. No, I will keep it just like separate here. Hi, Alana. Thanks for dropping by. Links don't show up in chat. Oh, shoot. I didn't know that, actually. But, yeah, if there's a specific Mecha Blue script... oh, and you linked the FontMake plugin earlier. I get it. I saw your comment. I was a little confused by that. Thank you for linking that. I guess what you could do is just give the GitHub kind of path, basically. So like, is it like slash font tools slash fontmake or fontmake dash plugin or something? I don't know. Just give the repo path and then people could get there. Or I could get there. Let's that. On a bit of an ink trap. 3, 2. Might try adding this. Yeah, I'm not going very in any particularly sensible order. Maybe let me do that for a second. Because it'd be nice to have like a better Vertimat result in a minute here. So a typical test word would be hand gloves or hamburger fontsif or fish taco berg. These words try to capture most of the kind of vital shapes in a font. And once you design these letters, you can keep going and design the rest of the letters in Latin. That's kind of the theory of it. So yeah, a very common way to start a font design would be doing like this, you know, these control characters and then a test word, for instance, because these allow you to space everything, and then these allow you to kind of explore some of the basic shapes, and then you can repeat them all. So like, yeah, the L is a really obvious one that you need. Let's see, let's make it 25, 9. Actually, this can echo the... Well, no, it shouldn't. Actually, never mind. Often the L needs a little more space than the D. Right, we've got our V. This is pretty much okay, maybe. curves are a little wonky. How did I do that? Let's fix the S. It's looking miserable. But what we can do here, I think it's got the same thing going on where the curves in the italic weren't as sloped as the rest. So once we slope it halfway back, it's already looking a lot closer to something that we want. And then we can set in our, extreme points, delete our angled almost extreme points, and then we can start moving things around pretty well. Let's get you over here. I mean, that S is pretty close to what I want, perhaps. But I think maybe it's just a tad. It's a little hard to tell. Like, sometimes an S will look like it's leaning forward when it's looked at isolated, but then when you look at it in other things, it becomes sort of more clear that it has to lean forward a little bit. I sort of think that's because you're sort of spacing sort of up here and down here, and this space is often more open than this. That's my theory of why there's that effect. But this closes off that space, so maybe it has to be more symmetrical by itself. I don't know. Oh well, that looks kind of fine to me. Here's a case where I left a lot more contours separate because I was still a little less sure about all of them. Let me look at the comments again. That 4, thank you. Oh, thanks, Vidad, for linking. It's under Schriftgestalt. Okay. GitHub. Let me go here. GitHub.com/Schriftgestalt FontMake export plugin. Sick. All right, you know what? I'm gonna try it. There's no releases. That's annoying, but oh well, we'll just download the zip for now. Oh, cool! It adds a tab. I love that. Interesting. Oh, and you can have command line options. Okay, that's cool. That's cool. Let's. I'm gonna try it. Install. First, let me fix this G. And then I will be able to try the FontMake export plugin. Thanks for linking that. FontMake is just kind of a more professional tool to build fonts, and it's an open sourced tool. So like the huge benefit of it is that if you want to export from your same set of sources in 5 or 10 years, even if you can't open them in GlyphsApp anymore, like say GlyphsApp doesn't work on Mac at that point because maybe the company eventually goes out of business or gets bought or something, you can theoretically take your old sources and get the old version of FontMake and make it still work, which is really important if you're spending a lot of time on something. The other more near-term thing is that basically if like you find a bug or an issue, you can go and report it on the GitHub, see if other people are facing that thing. or if it's just something you're experiencing by yourself. Uh, yeah, so it's open source software, and there's some really huge advantages to working with open source software for productive things. Let's bring this down a bit, kind of like we did with the B. Okay, so we're getting there, maybe. All right. I want to do that for a second so I can. Let's try something. I want to get this bowl to be more symmetrical, so I'm going to just start from the O, scale it, and then I'll scale the inside. And then I'll kind of clean it up if it doesn't yet feel right. Yeah, it might be about right. So then let's grab this again, grab that again. And yeah, looking something. I'm pretty unsure about this kind of boot on the G. This font is meant to have too many serifs, but then sometimes it has too many serifs. But I have to figure that one out. All right, anyway, this should be, well, I guess I probably have to move it into the other sources again to make it compatible. You know what, I'm going to simplify this G so that, but I pasted it into the background. Basically, I removed some overlaps there so that, okay, there, if I hide the background, you can see more clearly that this is just one shape again, and that'll avoid little like zigzags up here and down here. Okay, yeah, I've got hand gloves now, so that's cool. I wonder, will this allow me to run Wordomat from this view? Nope. It expects me to be here. But I can do that. So which ones have we done? We've done S, T, N, O, D, G. We could easily fix a lot of these others from what we've got, of course. But this is what we have at the moment. So I'm pretty curious to see it. Okay. Cool. So that's a somewhat better representation of how this light Roman style looks, which is kind of fun to see. Oh, and I guess we better bring these G updates to our other master layers to make them compatible. And let's check if we've got any incompatible. Okay, the E, better do that as well. There's probably like a plugin or some sort of script you could do to copy from one layer to all the others, but oh well. There's a bunch of like out of sync metrics, but we'll just accept that for a moment. I guess we'd probably have to quit GlyphsApp in order for FontMake to work. Let's boot it back up again. How does kerning work with interpolation? That is a good question. It interpolates sort of like any other glyph point interpolates based on like how close it is to any of the masters in the design space, the kerning does as well. So I'll show you that in a second. Let's bring back our glyphs document. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I could even like let's grab our V and do a kern here. It's like really intense. It's over kerned, right? But it'll kind of show what I mean. So this one has a. Why is it not showing it? Oh, because I changed the side bearing. All right, let me. What the heck? All right, let me try that again. I didn't hold it right. No. Let me command Z a lot because I forget what the previous value was. I guess I could look at the D maybe. Okay. All right, so I neglected to hold down the option key. Now we're kerning. All right, cool. So that's a really intense kern, and that'll kind of show us. But basically, when you go from a negative 100, we'll call it, to a 0, just in the style in the middle of those, it'd be 50. Yeah, so it kind of works out. There's like, there's interesting gotchas. So like most applications don't kern between different styles of a variable font because they technically treat them as different fonts. So, and I don't think there's a mechanism in OpenType kind of for kerning between, say, a light V and a heavy O. But yeah, like on the web, if you increase the weight of your O, but the V stays light, you'll just lose the kerning between that pair. So that's something to be aware of, and it will cause problems sometimes. So, okay, this is super cool. This is really handy that you can see all these options like this. I like it. For now, we'll just let me set up my export destination to our previous testing thing. And nope, I dragged the wrong window. Okay. Oh God. So I guess that'll be something to debug on my own time. I probably don't have some like Python thing set up that it expected or something of the sort. It might also, I don't know. That's a curious. Converting weight axis value based on the font. Ah, okay. I think it's getting tripped up by the custom axes, which, fair enough, so was I. So that probably indicates that I was doing something wrong. Let me uncheck it and see if font make would work. Oh, and I also wanted to add a new suffix. Nope. All right, that's too bad. Well, anyway, let's try to export in the old-fashioned way. Okay. And then let's get back to it. Okay, here's the most recent one. Here are fonts. I can also just open this in Font Goggles again. So let's look at this for a second. If you remember, I had just put some kerning between here, and basically it just kind of is unkerning itself. Like, so in the middle of our weight axis, it's got a middle amount of weight, or of kern between negative 100 and kern 0. It's negative 50 at this point. Yeah, so that's kind of the simple answer to that question, but it's a good question because there's more going on there. Oh, and of course, we haven't like set up the other layers for a lot of these, so yeah. But there's not very much time left in my stream session. Um, yeah, to be honest, I feel like if you're still enjoying the experience of like watching some font streaming, if you've got it in the background or you're just enjoying yourself watching it, thank you for stopping by. Um, Let me check out the Fontathon website and see who's up next, or it might just be on Instagram. Let me see. Um, Although there is a question, let me try to answer the question for a second. Would I recommend using Kernon? I think it can be really helpful. I don't know that, like, basically, it doesn't offer as much control as a process like Metrics Machine does, which, for instance, I use Metrics Machine 100% on name sans, but on some of the like in progress fonts I've got on future fonts, I'm just using Kernon um, to have pretty good kerning. It's pretty good if you use it right, kind of like if you follow the process they suggest, and it saves a lot of time. And yeah, I personally can't, like, most font designs don't work very well if you have zero kerning at all, even though that's the way that like it's useful to make a font that way so you really pay attention to the spacing. But almost all software turns on kerning except for Microsoft Word. Uh, so I think it's worth kerning along the way, and Kernon is pretty good for that. And then my current theory is kind of, um, I'll probably, to kind of go from work in progress fonts to version 1.0 fonts, I intend to do a manual kerning stage where I really think it through, look at like every pair that's kerned, and make some careful judgments. Um, but yeah, I think for like an agile workflow of font design, Kernon is really awesome and so helpful. Yeah. So if you're making a quick font for like a small project, um, a flyer or a specific client, and there's a tight timeline, I think again Kernon can maybe be a good solution there. Um, okay, Alana is going to start in 2 hours. Um, Alana had a question. What are you using to show your keystrokes for the live stream? Yeah, I'm curious if these keystrokes are showing up enough to be visible. Um, this is an app called Keycaster. It's an open source app, and I mostly like it. I wish I could like make these bigger. There's another kind of flavor of the keystroke Keycaster thing. Um, yeah, that can be good. Um, Daniel, thanks for commenting. Alana is up next in 2 hours. First time hearing about Metrics Machine. Yeah, Metrics Machine is kind of a whole other path. It's really an amazing tool. Right now, I think it's an extension for RoboFont only. It used to be like a separate app. Um, so if you're in the Glyphs ecosystem, then and you don't have RoboFont, it is quite a significant expense, but it's a beautiful tool, and I really appreciate all of those developers and think they're worth supporting. But yeah, like from a financial sense, like it is a bit hard probably to, buy the extra font editor and then the extra extension on top of that. So it all depends on like your personal situation, what makes sense. I'm sure there's a really fine kerning workflow in Gliss, um, but I haven't figured it out. Like other than just like going through every pair. The nice thing about Metrics Machine is that it like gives you a very orderly way to set up your glyph groups and to go through pair lists and to create those pair lists, and it just makes it a more logical process, even though it's still kind of painful in its ways. I think of it like lifting weights or something where it's important for a healthy font, but not particularly fun. Yeah, so I'm almost done streaming here. I've got like 3 minutes left. And have a look at Kerncraft for glyphs. That is a good suggestion. I will try to do that probably. Yeah, the one other thing I was trying to think, Fontathon. Is there a website, Daniel? You could probably literally tell us. I have been very distracted, or busy, I guess, this week. I don't know if there's a timeline specifically. I'm sure it's just being updated a lot through the Instagram. So thank you, Daniel, so much for running this. Looks like possibly. Yeah, these are all in our current location. So I don't know. Alana is next, I think, and I guess in a couple hours. Okay, Daniel just puts yeah. It's like a kind of a casual, really fun thing. So I appreciate it being flexible and everything. Okay, last question probably. When you're designing for variable, you have your light master and bold master. Do you go back in with or ever start with a midpoint master in a larger family? Definitely, yeah. It depends on the design and how much has to be adjusted in the middle. Um, I think of a font as having kind of like a home base or something. Like, what is the soul of that font, I guess, or what is the core of it? So in Name Sans, the middle master there is actually the bold. Um, and then it goes way lighter and quite a lot heavier. But I wanted the bold to be as perfect as possible. So that was something I specifically drew. And then I drew the extremes. A lot of people would draw the regular as the default. And I think a lot of the time that makes sense. Certainly for your first font, I feel like working with the regular as the default is really sensible. In this font here, this is kind of a regular weight, even though I'm calling it light. I don't know. I'd have to like compare it to I don't know, other fonts, Times New Roman or whatever, to see how this kind of compares against a regular or a common regular. Um, the time you would want to be strategic about it is like, let me pull up Lang again if I haven't got it open right now. Lang Roman. Sometimes you can add, I think they're called brace layers or something. And this allows you to go from a light to a bold, but still have some control in the middle. So here is the regular weight, I think. Maybe it's the medium. Yeah, it's my regular. And right, like I've added that to glyphs where just going directly from this really heavy to a very thin, the thin strokes were just too light in the middle. So I think like E, S, a few glyphs have this, and I might add a few more. Yeah, like in a recent proof, I was noticing that maybe the midpoint of the G almost needs it because it gets kind of thinner. To be honest, maybe I could just do that. Yeah. But yeah, so you don't always necessarily need a regular or middle master, but it's often a good idea. So it just depends. Yeah. In like name mono, I'll probably do that where I've been drawing it with regular to extra bold maybe, and I plan to add a thin. I think that's how I'm structuring it. Maybe I'm going regular to black and I'll add a thin in that family. And that is, yeah, like most text in use in the world is going to be in the regular weight of a font. So it makes a lot of sense to spend the most time on that one in many cases. Okay, well, I'm done. So thank you so much for being here. This year was a lot more traffic than the last time I did it, so I appreciate all of you for showing up and hanging out. Thank you. Yeah, this recording will probably be up on my YouTube page in the future. I think there's some useful stuff in here. And yeah, feel free to reach out here or on Instagram or email if you've got questions in the future. So yeah, thanks everyone, and have a great rest of your weekend. Take care. This might be the better one. Ah, still kind of strange. Bye.